Right, everybody, thank you for joining me once again, where unfortunately we have to deal once again with the doyen of disinformation. Yes, the Sheik of Shriek. Here he is, Mike the Vegan, with his propaganda, his theology, his ridiculous anti-scientific claptrappery. Today he's responding to a video posted recently by Steak and Butter Girl Bella. Welcome back, Bella. We've missed you. A lot of you may remember Bella from her recent comments regarding her time with Yellow Ted. So, let's hear about what Mike had to say and see if it's worth responding to. I'm sure it will be. Is it worth listening to in the first place? Not for its own sake, but here we are doing education. So here it is. Mike.
It's Mike here, and today my response to Steak and Butter Gal. Yeah, that's almost as bad as having like vegan in your handle.
There is nothing worse than putting the word vegan in your handle, Michael.
We're looking at her blood test results. Yes, this is another carnivore blood test result video.
Okay, Michael, what qualifications do you have to speak about anybody's blood tests? Medical science? No, you don't. You have a master's degree in public health, which is basically a period of indoctrination and mistraining in how to misinterpret statistical inferences on a large scale, i.e. a population base. Nothing whatever to do with an individual person's blood test results in any way, shape, or form. And as such, you should probably remain silent.
But there will be new stuff in the sense that we're looking at vegan versus her carnivore blood work, which is interesting. And her blood work is analyzed by a cardiologist. Yes, the same carnivore cardiologist that the carnivore couple referenced in the video I recently responded to. So yeah, this is another carnivore video. I'm not going insane looking at all these people eating all this meat. Let's go.
No, Michael, you went insane quite some time ago when you decided to make a very, very poor decision for yourself in terms of your own health and nutritional requirements. And then you made the even worse decision to imagine yourself qualified to tell anybody else what they should do as well.
So who is Steak and Butter Gal? Well, here is her channel. She has 180,000 subs, and the video I'm responding to is this one with over 200,000 views. And it's weird how all of these carnivore bloodwork videos have this like really melodramatic, sarcastic intro of like, oh my God, am I going to die from heart disease? When you know they've already made up their mind. Here she is with hers.
It is mind-blowing. It's devastating. It's, wow, I'm going to have a heart attack. What am I going to do? Quit the carnivore diet.
To nutshell it, Bella, which is her real name, says that she was vegan and then has actually been carnivore for 5 years.
I got to spend some time talking with Dr. Philip Ovadia. He is a board-certified heart surgeon to actually show him my blood work.
Yes, this is that same cardiologist that the carnivore couple mentions, Dr. Ovadia, and they...
See how the vegan brain fog is such that he has to repeat himself?
He said, you know, his LDL is between 200 and 300.
Cool.
And of course, we're going to hear about why he doesn't care about that. But
because it's not worth worrying about, because it's not an indication of any kind of problem, Michael, necessarily at all.
Just hop right to some blood numbers and get to her total cholesterol. Here it is.
Who cares what it is before it even comes up? I have no interest whatsoever in anybody's total cholesterol readings.
My cholesterol really spiked up from 173 total cholesterol when I was vegan to a whopping 360.
It's not whopping, Bella. It is what it is. It's under the control of your genes. Still, those genes know what they're doing. Still, it's not a matter of concern whatsoever.
Total cholesterol when I became carnivore.
Literally 1 point for every day of the year. It is so high.
No, it isn't, Michael. It is what it is, and it's appropriate for her individually under the control of her genes.
More than doubled since she was vegan, which is quite ridiculous.
No, it isn't. What's quite ridiculous is you ignoring all the facts around the vast improvements in every aspect of Bella's health that have occurred, commensurate with quitting the poisonous, anti-scientific, anti-humanist theology of veganism, having gone carnivore and improved basically every aspect of her life. Let's ignore all of that stuff. The actual results, billions of person years of follow-up. Sure, it's just associative. It's not a controlled study, but it's the largest associative database available. And it's really, really quite clear about low cholesterol being associated with increased mortality from all causes, and indeed from every single one of the major causes individually teased out as well. So we're kind of really done with this. And I don't know why you're not, other than your theology absolutely depends on it, Michael. You have to take pot shots at the carnivore diet, false as those pot shots are, because there's not a single thing to recommend the diet that you do promote.
That, to anyone, is shocking.
But no, it isn't, Bella. No, it's not shocking at all. It's not even remotely surprising. It is what it should be. I know you're playing a bit of a role here. I know you're kind of doing a lead up to this, but let's be consistent.
I'm not anyone because the level of cholesterol in my blood is so exorbitantly high that it acts as an insulator, preventing me from being shocked by electricity. It's also...
Oh, goodness gracious. What an absolute buffoon this boy is.
So apparently an insulator from science.
You are...
Michael, with the projection there. Absolutely hilarious. As funny as a fight. Yes, indeed. Insulated from science. I'll tell you who's insulated from science.
Are still believing that high total cholesterol, high LDL in your blood work is a big red flag. Or if your family is pressuring you, telling you these things and scaring you, Dr. Ovadia explains so well why the LDL is not what one should focus on.
Your family might get a little bit worried when you have blasted through the cholesterol. So not just like
there is no such thing as a cholesterol ceiling, Michael. This is an idea you've just pulled out of your anal orifice.
Eviscerated.
Sure, there's a physiological maximum for any given individual, but it's not a ceiling and it can't be broken through because once you've reached your physiological maximum, there's no way to drive it any higher. And it's still under the control of your genes that still know what they're doing.
The ceiling and just replaced it with lipid-based ceiling tiles. All right, now let's get to that LDL.
Tell us all about the science, though, Michael.
Or bad cholesterol.
There is no such thing as bad cholesterol, Michael. That is another idea you've pulled out of an anal orifice. One of the many I've torn you, perhaps, over the years.
Which, in my opinion, is the most important.
Who cares about your opinion, Michael? You are completely, absolutely, utterly untrained in this area. You have no knowledge in this area whatsoever. You have no credence in this area whatsoever. You have a theologically based opinion. Who cares?
With that, your LDL cholesterol went from...
LDL cholesterol does not exist. There is no such thing. Cholesterol comes in one and only one form, and lipoproteins that carry cholesterol come in a myriad forms. Lipoproteins are not cholesterol. Cholesterol are not lipoproteins. Saying LDL cholesterol is just nonsense. Some people might say, oh, yes, but it refers to the portion of cholesterol carried by the low-density lipoprotein. Okay, great. Is that measured? No, it's estimated. So we still don't know what the proportion of cholesterol out of the total is actually carried by the LDL because it is estimated.
From 81 to 264.
Holy cripesies. Well, just to put that in perspective, how...
But Michael, you have no basis to form a perspective because you do not know what you are talking about here.
Unusual that is from this...
It's not unusual. It is what it is because it's under the control of her genes that still know what they're doing. Those genes are providing enough lipoprotein to carry enough lipid and cholesterol on the basis of what is required at that time in response to the environment in which she's placed those genes, i.e. how she lives, where she lives, all sorts of other factors, including what she eats, all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, this is taken care of by the body. No intervention is required by us at all. We should just let our genes get on with it.
This American Heart Association paper that looked at the blood levels of one...
That's not a paper, that's an abstract, Michael, which is a short report on some work that has yet to be published, most likely. It may well have been published by now, but what's your point?
0.3 million people in the United States. She just blew past the 99th percentile for LDL in the US, which is 215.
So?
She's almost a full 50 points past the 99th percentile.
So?
My whole LDL is 50. She's a whole...
Yeah, so that's a problem, Michael, a very, very serious problem. Should we look again at what's associated with having such a low level of LDL? I believe you just said your total is 50. Well, Michael, that would seem to predispose you to being in a group of people who, on a population basis in 168 countries and territories around the world, billions with a B of person-years of follow-up that do not agree with what you're saying right now, Michael. What this data is suggesting to us is that when you're looking at what's associated with what, that low cholesterol is associated with increased mortality. Sorry about that.
He passed the 99th percentile. But she says it's all okay because Dr. Ovadia said so.
Well, of course, Michael, you're vastly more qualified than a board-certified cardiac surgeon on matters of cardiovascular pathophysiology. No, you hold a master's degree in fudging the numbers, in misinterpreting and misrepresenting statistics, statistical inference, science, facts, logic, and reason. He's a board-certified cardiac surgeon. I am a cardiovascular pathophysiologist, among other things, Michael, which means I have spent a significant number of years researching and working clinically in that field. You have not. Okay?
Dr. Ovadia reassured so plainly and simply that total cholesterol is not a reliable, accurate marker of where your heart health condition is.
Correct.
LDL cholesterol is a very lousy predictor of heart disease risk.
Correct.
Trying to be like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of cholesterol denial.
Denial. There we go. Let's throw in the word denial to make it appear that you have a point, Michael, which you do not. Nobody is denying that LDL exists. It does. Nobody is denying that cholesterol exists. It does. It is not being denied. What is being refuted is the demonstrably false claim that LDL can be used as a predictor of any kind of health outcome over any period of time whatsoever in any group of individuals.
LDL is not the cholesterol you're looking for.
With you, the force is. And by force, I mean science.
To be fair,
Yeah, but Michael, you don't know the first thing about science. You are completely divorced from reality, let alone having an appreciation of science.
he didn't talk about like LDL science in this particular video, but there's the longer interview where he elaborated a little bit more.
Many people will have heard me and others talk about, the studies that have been done looking at patients coming into the hospital with a heart attack and that their LDL cholesterols are
Reverse causation, though. Reverse causation, though. That's what Michael's going to say next.
Are basically not predictive.
The concept here is that people who have lower cholesterol still end up having heart attacks from the data. Therefore, infinitely high cholesterol is fine. He still doesn't cite particular studies here.
Nobody said infinitely high anything is fine. Too much of anything will kill you, Michael, including oxygen and water. Ridiculous.
But that carnivore couple, which follows him, did cite this particular study to make that exact point. Was the conclusion that infinitely high LDL doesn't matter at all for heart?
Yeah, but so let's take that paper and read its conclusion without actually analyzing that paper, what was done, how it was done, whatever, to see whether the conclusion written by those authors to that paper is in fact supported by the data in the paper that was written. The answer is no. The conclusion written by those authors is totally at odds, in fact, with the data that they have provided us in their paper. It's incredible, by which I mean lacking in any credibility whatsoever.
No, their conclusion was that the cutoff for low...
See the word there, may? That leaves the other thing entirely on the table. Maybe not too, and in fact, maybe not is the one that's more likely, as it turns out. These findings may provide further support for recent guideline revisions with even lower LDL goals. It doesn't. The data they have provided showed us, actually, that the LDL levels of patients presenting with heart attacks is described by a normal distribution, not a dose-response straight line. We are done. This conclusion is ridiculous. It is not supported by the data in the paper which it's written in.
Cholesterol actually needs to be lowered.
First, no, not actually. That's somebody's conclusion that they wrote because they were paid to write that. What you need to do, or what one that needs to do as a scientist, is read the paper and see whether the conclusion is in line with the data presented. It still isn't.
Data that we had around LDL cholesterol really showed that it was only meaningful if it was exceptionally high.
And still not, in fact, meaningful because it's not a cause and effect artifact.
think of as low, like around 100 or a little below 100, is still high enough to give atherosclerosis, which we've known from other studies like this one.
This study I've dealt with, I don't know how many times. It's like water off a duck's back. This is what I mean about Mike the Vegan being completely divorced from reality. There is any number of ways to completely dismiss this chart and this paper as being of any utility or value whatsoever. The three most important are these. Number one, this is an associative data set. It does not inform on cause and effect, risk, hazard, or anything remotely related to that. It is an associative data set. That actually is enough to dismiss it completely, because you're talking about cause and effect here, Michael. This paper cannot support any claim on cause and effect one way or the other. But if that's not enough for you, there are another couple of things we can throw at it pretty easily as well. Here we go. It's an associative data set associating what with what, by the way. Well, what we have here on the y-axis is it says atherosclerosis or no atherosclerosis. So this is a categorical. This is not a continuous variable. Ergo, attempting to use regression, which is what this is, to describe that data set is completely inappropriate. It also turns out that when you look at what atherosclerosis is, it's no sites, one sites, or two sites of atherosclerotic lesioning at any level of development of any size or thickness. So there is actually no metric here on disease severity or progression whatsoever. So that's another reason why this is a useless chart. Thirdly, if we look at the left-hand end of this chart where there's no atherosclerosis, what you'll also find is that there's no subjects. N equals 2, N equals 9, N equals 41 for the first three of those. So we could actually dismiss those from the chart completely as being totally without any semblance of statistical power and just look at the fourth one onwards, and there's no real trend there. Okay, so this shows us nothing. Nothing at all. It does not support Michael's argument. It's propaganda. It's pseudoscience. It's just nonsense. What's next?
You can see from this chart very clearly.
No, we can't see anything from this chart clearly whatsoever because it provides us with no information of any utility, and it shows nothing that we can use to clinically suggest to a person what their likely outcomes will be because it still is associative, it's still not cause and effect.
You can still get atherosclerosis at like 100. And credit to the commenters under my carnivore couple video. They mentioned a really good point that the level of cholesterol can actually appear lower than it likely was throughout somebody's life when they are admitted to the hospital for a heart attack.
Great, show me some data on anyone's lifelong LDL levels, Michael, tested at least weekly, if not more, throughout a period of multiple decades. Should we wait around for Michael to supply us with any one data set like that? If he can find one, perhaps can he find 100,000 or so? No? Okay, good.
Because studies show that cholesterol levels lower after a heart attack.
So?
In particular, you might be knocking 10 to 20 points off, depending on...
Okay, back that up with a reference, Michael. And even if you do, so? People have heart attacks with both high and low cholesterol levels. There is no cause and effect data. There is no dose response associative data even. It's a normal distribution. We are done. There is still no evidence whatsoever of a causal link between LDL, which by the way is not cholesterol, and heart disease. Neither is there one between cholesterol, which is cholesterol, and heart disease, or in fact any causal relationship between anything and anything else in human beings over any period of time under any control in a lab lock-in situation under decent observation, scientific discipline, etc. It's rubbish.
And you take the measurement, which is huge. And I dug for
measurement, you say? Measurement of LDL? No, it's estimated, Michael. It's not measured, remember?
For more of Ovadia's arguments, found this article, an interview where he does say that the size of your LDL particles matters.
And it doesn't.
Likely hearkening
that's false too
to the low-carb mantra of large, fluffy LDL being harmless.
Yeah, that's also propaganda and not supported by science. It's nonsense too.
But again, to a study like this one, they are both horrible. One is just slightly less horrible.
Neither is horrible. All lipoproteins of all sizes and densities exist because they are encoded for by a length of DNA that stipulates that that is what should be manufactured, and those genes are up and down regulated by the circumstances in which those genes find themselves at any given time. It's all taken care of still.
For cardiovascular disease. And he says lousy marker. Is that really the case?
Yes, it is.
Because people are using him here as a carnivore authority.
Well, he's much more of an authority than you are, Michael. You have no qualifications in physiology, medical science, health science, cardiovascular pathophysiology, or anything except number fudging. Okay? You are out of your depth. You are out of your lane. You have no business whatsoever speaking in this area.
Appealing to authority here. He's the cardiologist. Well, how about another authority that's a little bit larger, the European Society of Cardiology, who has
an appeal to authority fallacy to an organization that gives us its opinion. So what?
100,000 medical professionals.
Oh, right, this one. Right. So the European Consensus Panel. Shall we have a look at their conflict of interest statement, the one that tells us how much money these people were paid to espouse the opinion that they espouse. Look at the top right hand of the screen there, boys and girls. Current opinion. I thought Michael was going to tell us all about the science. This isn't about science. This is an opinion. It's even disclaimed as such, and it's an opinion that's bought and paid for. How much is it being paid for? Let's have a look. Okay, there it is. Good. So we can dismiss this entirely, I would suggest, as being of any credibility whatsoever.
Professional members, they say that LDL is causal to atherosclerosis.
Who cares? That's their opinion, and it's their opinion that's been bought and paid for, and it's not supported by science.
That's artery disease. And I keep mentioning the European one. Well, how about one in the US, the American College of Cardiology?
Another appeal to authority fallacy statement. Who cares what their opinion is? They don't have any science either, Michael. Neither does Philip Ovadia. Neither do you, and neither do I, that can cause and affect, link heart disease with cholesterol or lipoproteins or any fraction of the lipoproteins or particles of any size.
50,000 members. Well, here they say that, quote, the higher
an opinion statement, position statement. Who cares?
A person's LDL or bad cholesterol.
There is no such thing as bad cholesterol. So we can dismiss this entirely as being totally without credibility. Anyone that would say bad cholesterol does not know what they're talking about, and they can be ignored and dismissed immediately. There is nothing further we can gain from this so-called authority. Shall we move on?
Higher the chance of developing heart disease or having a heart attack or stroke, and of course lower
chance, risk, hazard, all things that require underpinning from cause and effect data collected experimentally. Do you have any of that, Michael? No, still, I thought not.
It lowers the chance of
No, chance. Same deal. No.
atherosclerosis. So when we're going to be appealing to authorities, what's better? One carnivore
Well, what's best is not to appeal to authority. What's best is to stick to what the science can establish. Can the science establish that LDL is a causal artifact in heart disease? The answer is no. It cannot. Fact. Unassailable fact.
cardiologist or multiple societies of cardiology with 150,000 members.
No, we'll stick to the science. Thank you, Michael.
Total. And of course, that LDL causal claim is backed up by the best epidemiological evidence that we have.
Epidemiology cannot inform on cause and effect. Not one iota, not one jot. That's just another example of how destitute of understanding Mike the Vegan is. This here even says LDL is causal in atherosclerosis at the top of the chart, which is completely inappropriate because this is not cause and effect data. This is associative data which cannot inform on cause and effect, and this is also put together by the same European people who have paid all that money to have an opinion. Okay, so we can move on completely. This also does not show strong relationships of any kind. By the way, what is next?
Which is Mendelian or genetically randomized studies where...
No, they're not genetically randomized at all, Michael. You don't even clearly understand what a Mendelian so-called randomization study is, it seems. For a start, we can remove the word randomization because they're not randomized. They're self-selected as having or not having particular groups of all sorts of different SNPs. And then people with all sorts of different SNPs are bundled together into one bin of people who so-called have low cholesterol, genetically so-called, despite the fact that it's not measured. We're just left to assume that it's so because the SNP is in play. No, just ridiculous. What's next?
Where people who have higher LDL cholesterol have more atherosclerosis. And that all...
But that's not the case, Michael. It's still a normal distribution.
Lines up with, of course, how people on a low-carb diet from meta-analysis after meta-analysis have about 30% increased all-cause mortality. Right.
They don't, though, Michael. That study there was so badly adjusted, so strongly adjusted as to not reflect the reality of what was observed in the populations even observed. And even if that wasn't the case, which it is, it still doesn't matter because it's still an associative data set which can not inform us on cause nor effect, Michael.
And of course, in the longer interview, Ovadia goes into remnant cholesterol. My carnivore couple video was essentially all...
Also completely irrelevant to heart disease causality.
About remnant cholesterol. They're trying to use lower remnant cholesterol as, again, an excuse for the super high LDL as if it magically...
It does not need excusing, Michael. It is what it is under the control of the genes still.
He cancels it out. You can watch that video for the full details, but to just hit on one of the points, this study is kind of a mirror to the study that they're using in that it looked at people admitted for, heart attack or stroke. And even
an associative data set.
In people with lower remnant cholesterol,
look at that, a normal distribution curve. Not a dose-response relationship one way or the other in any way, shape, nor form. Is this hard to understand? Is this difficult?
Ton of them were admitted, as this chart shows, and that's probably because their LDL was still high enough to give them heart disease. And
LDL does not give people heart disease, Michael.
To be fair, it is the case that somebody with lower LDL can still have higher remnant cholesterol, and that is a risk.
No, it isn't, because there are no studies that can inform us on risk of any kind, Michael.
But why not go lower on both, which I do not believe is possible.
Well, who cares what you believe, Michael, on any front?
On a carnivore diet, but is, from my blood work, very doable on a vegan diet, thankfully. And I would...
but you don't want to do that, Michael. Remember? It's contraindicated, it seems.
Also add that a carnivore diet doesn't guarantee low remnant cholesterol. Yeah, you're able...
No kind of diet guarantees anything, Michael, of any kind. So your point is basically vacuous.
To, lower your triglycerides and stuff.
Triglycerides are also expressed by a normal distribution curve in that same population of heart disease patients admitted in the last 24 hours with an actual heart attack. So it's not causal either.
In many cases, triglycerides go up, like this guy on a carnivore diet at 261, which means his remnant cholesterol is over.
You know what the easiest, most simple way it seems to raise the triglycerides in your blood is? Michael, do you know? Because it seems you don't.
50. This risk is well illustrated.
There are no studies that inform us on risk of any kind in humans as it relates to their health and any aspect of their nutritional policy, Michael. Not one study anywhere, ever. Never will be either. Unethical, impractical, impossible financially. Okay? That's why this backwards and forwards continues ad infinitum ad nauseum. Because if we had the answer and we had the science, there'd be nothing to debate any further, would there?
By this case study of two
a case study. N equals how many? A couple, maybe.
People, which also illustrates the danger of high.
No, it doesn't. N equals 2 illustrates nothing about anything, Michael. Danger, you say? No. False claim again.
LDL and artery clogging. Now, I've never mentioned this study before, but it did look at two healthy younger men. They were ages 33 and 28, and they had just exorbitantly high LDL cholesterol.
That's a value judgment statement, Michael. It bears no resemblance to reality, fact, science, or anything else. It's your opinion again. And it's just ridiculous. Just like you, Michael.
Levels like over 500. And they used carotid ultrasound to look at the thickness of the inner artery wall, which is, a measure of atherosclerosis, and found that they were at...
Not necessarily, Michael. Again, you don't understand anything about this clearly.
The 97th and 90th percentiles for subject A and B, which is obviously really high, and they conclude that this is suggesting early development of atherosclerosis. Depending on the study, that puts their artery level at like an...
Are you absolutely stoned, Michael? Look at the spread of this data here. This is so wildly noisy that to try to pull a signal out of it is absolutely ridiculous, impossible, impractical, and of no utility. This is throwing numbers at people for the sake of throwing numbers at people. People who in general don't understand what these numbers tell them. This is propaganda. This is not science. This is not responsible reporting. This is of no utility. Goodness, look at the noise in this. It's massive.
Average person twice their age at around 50 or 60. And that was just a year on the carnivore diet. It doesn't appear that these people were smoking, so that is wild.
Okay, so a year. They're on a carnivore diet, you say? These two people? Again, that tells us nothing because N equals 2 tells us nothing. 12 months also tells us nothing about a person's long-term health likelihoods, outcomes, or anything else. Neither does a report on what they tell people they're eating have anything to do with cause and effect on any disease process or development of atherosclerosis or anything else.
And they also came up with this chart showing the sort of lipid profile of these people. And it shows remnant cholesterol in terms of VLDL and IDL.
So?
Intermediate density lipoprotein. It's
so?
Not estimated. It's actually an advanced panel, unlike the remnant cholesterol estimates of these other carnivores. The bottom curve is sort of a control group.
Sort of a control group. Well, is it a control group, Michael, or is it not a control group? Because the scientific discipline has some quite clear rules on what is and what is not a control group. You've just told us basically that this is not a control group. Okay, so we can ignore it. It's not science. It's propaganda.
A pool of blood, just a blood pool. And then we have subject B and then finally subject A. And yeah, you can see that subject A over on the left side, their remnant cholesterol is high. Both of their LDL levels are high as well.
And high according to whom or what? Some authority? Some authority that's been paid a lot of money by companies that make drugs that lower cholesterol? Maybe? I don't know.
It follows, it's logical that...
Oh, logic, you say, Michael. Good. Tell us all about logic. Good. I'll be waiting here for anything that you have to say about logic, or that is logical. Nope. Okay, I thought not.
Subject A is the highest at 97 percentile of clogging, who's then worse than subject B at 9.
It's not clogging. You're talking about an estimate of intermediate thickness via ultrasound. That's not a measure of anything to do with clogging.
80th percentile of clogging, who is worse than that control pool of...
Again, the control pool? Tell us about this control, Michael, because you just told us before it wasn't a control by saying sort of.
Blood. Thankfully, these people weren't listening to Dr. Ovadia. They're smart enough to listen to the research.
To you, Michael? They're smart enough to listen to you, are they?
researchers, their doctors, and went off the carnivore diet as they were told. And this brings me to a quick little tangent here, and that has to do with what low-carb people have coined as lean mass hyper-responders.
No, they haven't. In fact, that is an idea made up by an engineer who has no training in medical science or science of any kind, actually. It's an idea, and it's an idea with no utility of any kind, actually. Because at the end of the day, nobody needs to worry about their cholesterol levels or lipoprotein levels. They are what they are. They're under the control of the genes. That's the way it is. There is about a 1 in a 1 million incidence in the population of people who have an entirely knocked out LDL receptor, meaning that their level of both LDL and cholesterol, etc., and other lipids actually in their blood goes up and up and up and up. And usually those individuals die before they're much into their teenage years. Not actually because of the high lipids or cholesterol, but because of the fact that their cells can't get it. And as such, they starve to death, basically. All right, shall we move on?
Which is these people that go on a low-carb diet, a keto diet, carnivore diet, and their LDL shoots through the roof.
Most people's LDL goes up when they go on a species-appropriate, species-specific diet, because that is indicated.
They're generally thinner people, and their theory on...
Again, generally people who take on a carnivore diet tend to be thinner, and those that start a carnivore diet not being thin generally tend to get thinner than they were when they started, Michael. Just the facts, though. Sorry about that.
This is that because they don't have a bunch of fat on their body, and when they're going into ketosis, they're not making new fat and then burning that fat, or for whatever reason, their lean mass leads to a metabolic difference where they're relying heavily on LDL to transport their energy.
So a theory put together by an engineer. Okay, fine. Who cares? I'm not interested in theories put together by people who are not trained in the area whatsoever, personally. I'm interested in what the science can tell us. And regarding the cause of heart disease, what the science tells us by inference of not following the pattern that it should do were it a causal agent, that tells us it's probably not. Okay?
Energy for their metabolism, but a lot of carnivore people are either hoping or just straight up already believe that this really high LDL level is just exempt from causing atherosclerosis.
No LDL level has been shown to cause any disease process in any individual ever. So we look at another case report though. N equals 1, is it? Goodness sake.
Which in my opinion is delusional. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because they are going to do a study that is 1 year long. However, it's in a bunch of young people, and they're going to probably be comparing it to the amount of artery clogging that happens in older people.
Clogging, you say? Define this clogging that you're talking about, Michael.
And that rate, you can see from this chart that...
We've already covered this chart, Michael. Look at the noise around the signal here. This tells us nothing of utility whatsoever.
Younger people
still
have a pretty slow increase in, artery wall thickness. But then once you get up to 50...
Oh, wow. Heart disease develops exponentially, does it? We know that, Michael. But that doesn't tell us anything whatsoever to do with the cause of that.
To 60, where most of these studies are on, you'll see rapid artery wall thickening. So my fear with their study that they're going to do is that they're going to just manipulate the data, game the data a little.
Oh, data manipulation is bad, is it, Michael? All right, that's what you have a master's degree in, data manipulation. You absolute hypocritical buffoon. You offensive little boy. What's next?
Little bit and say, hey, we can just adjust it for age and do all this crazy.
You can't adjust anything for anything. If you are a scientist, you report what you observed and you control your groups in the first instance before you collect the data. That is what science is. That is the discipline. Those are the rules. If you're not doing that, you are not doing science.
Because there's such a big gap between the younger carnivore people and the people who are normally in these studies, and their rates of atherosclerosis are going to be like, it's lower, so they're fine. So I just included this tangent to say, mark my words for when the study comes out in a year or so. And to look at some other blood markers, her total cholesterol to HDL ratio got worse. They didn't.
So it's not worse, by the way. It changed according to the machinations of her genes, which react to the environment in which she places them at any given time. It's all taken care of still, Michael.
Mention that. By the way, back to the study I mentioned about LDL particle size and risk total.
Right, so what we have here is, again, nothing. We have noise, and more noise. Look at the error bars around these data points. There is nothing to see here. Easy. What's next?
Cholesterol to HDL ratio was actually most associated with cardiovascular disease of.
So, tell you what else is associated with what? Between the ages of 5 and 10 years old, larger feet is associated with vastly improved mathematical ability. Therefore, Michael, we should probably stop wasting money on training mathematics teachers, and instead we should genetically engineer our children to be born with bigger feet. And then they'll be mathematical geniuses at birth, won't they, Michael? How about the fact that sunburn incidence at beach resorts is highly correlated with the sale of ice creams on that day at the same beach resort? Should we therefore outlaw ice cream sales, Michael? Would that be a good idea? Perhaps a person with atherosclerotic disease, which is basically damage to tissues and cells, maybe those cells need material to repair themselves. Given that cell membranes in the human body are roughly 50% cholesterol, maybe they need a lot of cholesterol to be delivered there to help with the repair process. How is it again that we develop, or that we deliver the cholesterol to those cells? Oh, yes, that's right. It's LDL that does that. Shall we move on?
Any metric at 2.8 times the risk for high risk.
No, not risk. The study can't inform on risk. And 2.82 plus or minus how much, Michael? See the error bars there? Are those, by the way, 95% confidence intervals, or are they standard deviations? Quite different metric. Doesn't see. Oh, it does say there 95% confidence interval. Okay. Wide. Still very wide. If it was standard deviations, it would have been even worse. Again, signal to noise ratio issues. Things that you learn about when you actually understand science and statistics and things like that, Michael, instead of getting a master's degree in data fudging, which is what you've got.
Low, pretty comparable to total LDL at 2.5, though.
So what?
But then they talk about her triglycerides.
So again?
Which, are at 15, which Dr. Avadia says is the lowest he's ever seen.
You have the lowest triglyceride level, I believe, at 15. Certainly, probably.
See, look at that. You know how I kind of alluded earlier to, Michael, what's the easiest way to raise the triglyceride in your blood? There it is on the chart. Look at it. On a vegan diet, 97. On a carnivore diet, 15. Still not causal to anything, necessarily, or even indicative of anything much, actually. But interesting nonetheless. I guess you failed to appreciate that, Michael. Just like everything else, reality seems to escape you, Michael.
Probably some genetics and everything else going on there.
Which got me wondering, could this be too low?
Too low? Could it be too low? I don't know, Michael. Could it be too low?
We'll look into that. Either way, low triglycerides don't cancel out LDL, which again is called.
LDL does not need to be cancelled out. And you're about to say it's causal in heart disease, and it still isn't, Michael. No, it isn't, Michael. No, false.
Let's look at some vitamins, starting with vitamin B12. On her vegan diet, was low. She wasn't technically below the cutoff for deficiency.
There is no cutoff for deficiency clinically in practice in a person free living in the universe, Michael. Thresholds are of no value. Above this level, safe. Below that level, unsafe. Or vice versa, depending on the thing we're talking about. No, utterly vacuous and ridiculous.
Way lower than all of these modern vegan studies, which makes me think that when she was vegan, she was doing vegan.
Michael just said think, referring to himself. Isn't that amusing, kids?
Vegan wrong. I know people are triggered with you did vegan wrong as a phrase because it's
she probably did.
So oversimplified. But in this case, we're having a blood measurement showing that she was doing it wrong. But again and again, these newer studies using.
Oh, right. So if you have a blood measurement which is not in line with what you think it should be, they must have done it wrong. Good logicking there.
Quality measurements like methylmalonic acid at true B12 status. Vegans are doing great. Look at your recent.
Yeah, Michael, obviously. Oh, yes, vegans are doing great. Yes, they're doing awesome. Woo.
Study that looked at vegans out of Germany. I just did a video on those vegans were averaging around 400, trending higher than meat eaters. But I do think it was funny that she didn't include the normal ranges for these numbers because her B12 is now out of the normal range. It is too high, which is...
Oh, too high, is it? According to whom, Michael? On the basis of what? No? Okay.
Is not a good thing. It's not.
Says who? Oh, an opinion piece. That's who says. By someone called Nicholas Bacala, whoever that is. Very high blood levels of vitamin B12 were tied to an increased risk of... risk. So presumably what Nicholas Bacala has done is get a large group of genetically identical people together, lock them in labs for multiple decades, holding every aspect of their lives and experience of the universe in every way absolutely constant, except for their exposure to B12, to see if there are differentials, cause and effect. I presume that's what the study is. Shall we hear a bit more, Michael? Tell us about how this is an experimental study, properly controlled, properly designed, properly disciplined to establish a cause and effect artifact, which is what would be required to support a statement around risk, which is a cause and effect statement. Go, let's hear about this experiment.
Not a good thing because it can be associated with other issues.
Associated. So not an experiment. Are we done? I am.
And it's also a little weird how, even if she's eating 2 pounds of steak a day, which is like a carnivore classic amount to eat, that's only 18 micrograms per day of B12. Like, she is really high based off how much she's eating, especially. And now we get to vitamin.
So maybe it's not to do with her diet solely, perhaps.
Vitamin D, which I think is where her video sort of went wrong, in that like the last 7 minutes, the vast majority of the video is just on basic vitamin D stuff. Her vitamin D was quite low on a vegan diet, still low on a non-vegan diet.
So
You're someone else that may...
And low according to whom, on the basis of what?
Need to supplement vitamin D.
She even mentioned supplementing, so the dietary choices here are almost irrelevant, but I will say, if this is something that scares people away from a vegan diet, looking again to that recent German study, the vegans actually trended higher in terms of their vitamin D level, higher than the meat eaters, which I just wanted to add.
And if you want to be scared away from a vegan diet, all you need to do is look at a vegan.
But the point is, she spends the vast majority of time talking about vitamin D when her cholesterol markers are, the most dangerous thing here.
They're not, because danger suggests risk. Risk is a cause and effect statement. There is no data to underpin that. False again. Ideology again. Propaganda again. No, Michael, wrong.
Heart disease is our leading killer. And again,
yes, it is, but it's not caused by cholesterol or lipoproteins or any fraction of the lipoproteins, apparently.
She just ignores that. And of course, she's trying to post herself as like a good anecdote. Carnivore is great. Do carnivore with me and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Michael. Let's compare the two of you for robustness of health, presentation, apparently, goodness of everything, really. If you're just going to do anecdotal comparisons of one person with another, let's do that and see which one of you is the one that people might aspire to be like in terms of their health.
But I think we need to balance it out with anecdotes. And if you ever feel like doing that, feel free to check out the Instagram page. Shrinking Balls is actually on there, and a whole list of other.
Oh, Michael. The irony has clearly completely missed you. We're talking about other people's balls. This is just a ridiculous propaganda site put together by an ideologue talking about people's opinions and anecdotes. Can we do some science at any stage?
Crazy problems. In the end, it's wild to just see a woman like Steak and Butter Gal sit down with a doctor, a cardiologist, who's just telling her that everything looks great.
And it does.
When, the main metric causal factor for...
No, Michael, still, no. There are no causal artifacts established anywhere in the literature in this regard. None.
Heart disease is just through the roof, which again, all of the cardiology authorities with...
No, Michael, there are no authorities, only people who claim authority. The authority is the empirical science. That's not a person. It's a bunch of data to be interpreted by competent people for the purpose of interpreting such data, of which, Michael, you are not one of those people. Remember?
But a net 150,000 health professionals as members say...
Yes, and are they mandated to hold a certain line of opinion at all, Michael? Can they be struck off for saying the wrong thing? Can they be deregistered from their medical professions for saying something that's unacceptable narrative on the basis of someone's opinion, such opinion being bought and paid for? Maybe. Interesting, isn't it?
Is something you want to lower, is causal to heart disease.
No, it isn't still. No. Unacceptable, absolute nonsense.
which again is our leading killer. And yeah, these younger people, our body is still spry and it has lower inflammation and we can deal with higher cholesterol without just dropping.
It doesn't need dealing with. It is what it is, under the control of your genes. Still.
Dead immediately. We can stave it off, but over time, as these people age with the super high LDL level.
Again, a value judgment statement that has no relevance or worthwhile utility to anybody. An opinion, again.
It really concerns me. Again, that all.
Who cares what concerns you, Michael? You are an ignorant buffoon with absolutely no idea of what he is talking about in this field. None at all. You have no credibility at all. You are an ignoramus. You are a theologue. You are an offensive buffoon. What is next?
All-cause mortality is higher, and of course, these people are just having a massive carbon footprint and a massive...
Absolute, utter nonsense, Michael. Again, theological opinion. Wrong again.
The animal footprint, which just from so many perspectives, we need to stop. And once again...
What we need to stop, Michael, is allowing ideologically based buffoons like yourself coming online and making videos that make demonstrably clearly false claims. Cause and effect, for example. You have no data to support a claim of cause and effect. How do I know? Because nobody has any. It does not exist. What exists is your theology, your ideology, and your offensive propaganda, but no inference whatsoever on cause and effect for heart disease and cholesterol, or lipoproteins, or any fraction of them. Still.
And of course, let me know down below if there's anything I missed about Steak and Butter Gal's stories and her claims here. And
you missed absolutely everything, Michael. Everything of any value or utility, robustness or correctness. What you did is completely ignore reality again, and once again stated your ridiculous theological opinion again. You're looking well, by the way, son. Very, very well. And geez, excuse me. Apologies.
As usual, feel free to like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Yes, you will see us in the next one. It'll be the next time I respond to your absolute ridiculous claptrappery, Michael. Right, there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me again next time where Michael will be wrong again. See you then. Ciao for now.